This is the Nations Conspire channel. Welcome to today's show. I wanted to cover the fact that the media once again is talking about noise canceling headphones and things like the earbuds that you see so many young people out there wearing. And again, the media goes into this to try to downplay the dangers of EMF frequencies, which they will not admit exist in these devices, which is very clear for anybody out there that has an EMF reader. You could read the frequencies, which I'll show you later in the video, of just how dangerous these are for humans to have on their bodies, including things like cell phones pressed against their skin or on their nightstand at night, emitting frequencies directly to their body and their brain, which is extremely harmful. So what the media does is they bring attention to this, and then they talk about, well, are noise canceling headphones to blame for young people's hearing problems? And then the mainstream media covers it. And I'll show you the clip that they aired on NBC momentarily, where you can see these bogus doctors who say, well, I'm still going to wear my earphones. You know, the same guys who told you a couple of years ago claimed to be doctors that went on national television and said, hey, even though it doesn't make you immune, even though I'll still need to get more and more of these things, I'm going to go and get it, and you should go and get it too. These people are criminals. These people in these tech companies who create this technology, and then the government who gives them approval to sell this technology, all should be arrested for crimes against humanity. Cancer rates, tumors, all sorts of problems with the immune system, neurological issues. Of course, this type of technology like cell phones and these 5G towers that are all over the place can easily be pointed to immediately if anyone's wondering why men and women can't have children anymore. Men walking around with their phones in their pockets, not realizing what it does to their sperm count. This is all stuff that is scientifically proven. So they go out of their way to put doctors on TV to tell you that it's perfectly safe. And really the common sense logic here should be people discussing what EMF frequencies are and how if I told you to put your arm or your head in a microwave and turn it on, you would immediately say, absolutely not. What are you, insane? That's criminal, right? If you heard a horror story or a horror movie and you saw a guy do that in a horror movie, you'd say, that's one of the most insane things I've ever seen in my life. Did you hear about that true crime where the guy put the other guy's head in a microwave and it blew up? Oh my goodness, right? Yeah, well, electromagnetic frequencies that are coming out of things like the earbuds are the equivalent of doing that to yourself. The only reason that people out there do it and wear them is because the government tells them it's safe and they think they could trust in the government. The same people who obviously thought they could trust the government back in 2020 and 2021, around the time where Operation Warp Speed came out. And depending on which political ally of theirs, whether it was Trump or Biden, told them to go and get it, they waited for their hero to go tell them it was safe to go and get it, right? These people are never going to admit to the atrocities that they do. So people need to stop trusting in technology. The further we get with technology, the more enslaved we become. But on top of all of that, where do people think that these rising rates in cancer, these rising rates in so many immune system deficiencies actually come from? Do they think it's just something all of a sudden that's appearing out of thin air? Do they understand what these towers actually do? Well, of course they don't, because they don't want to believe it. And then when they actually get diagnosed with a brain tumor or something along those lines, then they'll still deny what they've been told ahead of time and say and think it was something else that gave it to them. They refuse to believe the truth because they believe lies like I'm about to play for you that air on the national news, where they say, oh, you know, noise canceling headphones, they could be linked to a brain condition. They could be linked to, you know, having future hearing problems. How about you tell the honest to God truth? Because they already know what this does to people's brains. They already know what this does to people's immune systems. They know what radiation exposure does. And that's what this is. It's exposure to radiation. Listen to these guys who, of course, are on American news. Neither one of them is American. Tell you that they're still going to wear theirs. And anyone out there screaming about all these other things is just a conspiracy theorist, right? You could literally buy these EMF readers and you could see the levels of the EMFs coming out of these headphones. Just like you could take one of these devices and hold it up to a microwave and see just how strong the frequencies coming out of the microwave are. And they're very similar to one another. But of course, they'll try to tell you that it's safe and that they're still going to wear theirs, just like they tried to tell you a couple years ago. It was safe, it was the right thing to do, and even if it doesn't cure you or make you immune, you need to go and get it, because they will, right? Fake doctors, fake humans, people who should be arrested. Listen to them.
How some of our devices, they warn us when things get too loud so that we could protect our precious hearing. And of course, you've got noise cancellation that helps us block out the noisy world out there. Well, what if the headphones that we are using can actually cause problems with how we process sounds? Well, the UK's National Health Society found a disturbing trend with young people using noise-canceling headphones, and the problem does not lie with our ears, but rather our brains, apparently causing people to have auditory processing disorders. So what does that mean? We're going to bring in Dr. Akshay Syal. He is here in the studio to explain all of this. First off, Akshay Syal, yeah, you've got a case right there.
Guilty as charged. I have noise canceling headphones. I've been using noise canceling headphones for years, and short answer is I'm not going to stop based on what we're seeing today. But that being said, it is really, really interesting what these audiologists are telling the UK press.
Got it. So you're still using it, but you've read this. What first off, let's just explain the science here. How does our brain process sounds, and what does noise canceling do?
Great question, Gotti. So when things make noise in the world, they create these sound waves, and I think we have an animation here we can play for you in a sec. But these sound waves travel through the ear. They go through the middle ear and then into the inner ear. You can see there on your screen there. And those vibrations from the sound essentially just vibrate different parts of the ear. You can see that's the eardrum there, just that little squishy thing moving. And there's some bones in the ear that are going to start vibrating. And that thing on the right there, that's the cochlea, that's sort of snail-looking thing. So that's, when we talk about noise damage and hearing loss, that's where most of it happens, right? That's the reason we have noise-canceling headphones in the first place, to prevent some of that damage. Magadi, what we're talking about today is a little bit different. You can see some of those hair cells on the screen there. That's what happens when things are too loud. But what they're saying today in the UK is that there's actually a problem in the brain, not the ear. Sort of like, if you're in a noisy room, kind of telling where that sound is or who is talking. That's more of what we're talking about today, as opposed to dampening everything.
Interesting. And so when the brain is processing this ambient sound in the background, is that important for human development?
It is, and a lot of what we're seeing, especially with these AirPods and other headphones, kids are using them in school. Kids in their younger years are using them in school, and so a lot of the alarm today in the UK press is about if these kids are starting so young, what's going to happen as they develop? Are those parts of the brain going to be shrink or atrophied, or going to be smaller than they should be? And how is that going to affect their ability to have a conversation sitting here in a room or in a loud room, or sort of be able to pick up different sounds? That's where a lot of the alarm is coming from.
So moderation?
So moderation. I'm not going to stop using noise-canceling headphones. A lot of the noise-canceling headphones we saw today, have a transparency mode or an adaptive mode where you can sort of, play that ambient noise, bring it back into life. Because, if you're walking around in New York City, for example, and you have noise-canceling headphones, that could be a problem if there's a car coming by and you don't hear it necessarily. So everything in moderation, and it's okay to turn off that noise-canceling feature every now and then.
Yeah, but I feel like you love your noise-canceling, because sometimes we share an office, and I know I had a tendency to mumble.
I got to tune out ambient noise, you know?
There you go. Dr. Akshay Syal, thanks so much for joining us.
So these clowns, right? They sit there on national television. And again, this is why we have such a problem in our world, because people automatically trust in the government. They automatically trust in these three-letter agencies, thinking that these things are safe. Why? Because they're on the shelf in the store, right? How many times have I covered those stories about the cereals that had weed killer in it? You've all probably heard the stories, whether you listened to my channel at the time or not, right? Suddenly there was weed killer in cereals, and nobody came out and said, there's weed killer in cereal. How does that happen if it has to go through approval to get on the shelf in the store, right? Oh, they just must have missed that one. They must have missed all those thousands of boxes that were filled with weed killer. So what exactly does the FDA do? Well, the FDA makes sure that there is weed killer in your food. Just like the FDA makes sure there's about 95 ingredients on the side of the box that you cannot pronounce and never will be able to pronounce. But you just say, well, it says xylofluorochromosoming, what? On the side of the box, blue 97, red 48, all these ingredients and food dyes. And you just go, well, it must be safe because they're selling it in the store, right? This is what we've gotten to as a society. If it's on the shelf at the store, it's safe. think the opposite. If it's at the store and it's on the shelf and it's being promoted by a big brand, it is likely not safe. People need to move away from tech. And in addition to all the things that these earbuds can do to your brain, the radiation exposure that it is, and again, the exposure to electromagnetic fields can affect your brain by causing changes in brainwave activity, impacting cognitive function, increasing oxidative stress, potentially contributing to neurological issues, right? EMF's influence on metabolic processes in the human body and exert various biological effects on cells through a range of mechanisms. EMF disrupts the chemical structures of tissue, since a high degree of electromagnetic energy absorption can change the electric current in the body. And of course, there's a lot of us that believe, well, what was occurring a couple of years ago, well, everybody was locking themselves inside. And then when they finally came back outside, saw all these towers around them, still didn't notice it because, of course, they've been trained to look down and not look up. It's why they don't notice the towers. They don't notice those fake clouds in the sky that they dump on us every single day. But at that time, when those towers weren't going up, we were hearing a lot of things about people's immune systems, the structure of the tissues inside their body, and those types of effects, right? And then, in fact, we even saw wonderful websites like YouTube tell people who talked about that it was conspiracy, and of course, they had to take tests to be able to continue to upload on that platform because you had to go through studying to make sure you weren't putting out misinformation. And of course, they were really, really, really obsessed with that notion that people were connecting the dots between the towers and people having immune system problems, right? So now we move to the point where nobody cares, nobody pays attention, right? In fact, you could actually see people who have earbuds that have literally caught fire inside of people's ears, causing ear damage, right? Just like we talk about the electric vehicle. How many of these videos have I shown of the electric vehicle blowing up in someone's garage, causing their house to burn down, blowing up on a highway? Right? You never see that with a gas-powered car blowing up, but nobody out there goes, hey, maybe these things aren't safe because they're told, hey, you're doing the world a favor by getting one of these. You're helping with carbon emissions. Oh, yeah? Well, you're also driving around with inside of a ticking time bomb, right? Those things blow up. These things blow up and can blow up in here. Don't forget those cell phones that were blowing up. We're hearing the stories about cell phones blowing up overseas, right? People in their pockets with walking, ticking time bombs, or they were walking around as they were ticking time bombs. People still don't believe that they could send electromagnetic pulses to people's phones and blow them up. Well, of course they can. And I've proven that many times, and the videos are available on the website. But here's just a little look. Even doctors talking about, before 5G, the dangers of this type of exposure to electromagnetic frequencies. And you can see for yourself that once you remove your earbuds out of that little case holder, well, it seems like it's the equivalent of having your head in a microwave.
Physiological effects on the nervous system and on the immune system.
Radiation from radio frequencies is classed in the same category of carcinogens as lead.
It's 10.
One advisor to the World Health Organization said there's enough evidence that if they were to re-evaluate radio frequency radiation,
it would be placed in class 1. i.e. a human carcinogen, and governments could not possibly ignore that.
Some say the scientific debate about the health effects of microwave radiation is over, but the question remains, can we afford to take this risk? Medical doctors are requesting delayed deployment until testing can be conducted on the long-term biological effects of 5G technology.
Okay, so open the case, please. Just open the case, don't pull the earphones out. These are genuine, right? Yes. You see the radiation levels going up? Okay. And you can see also that the time of the transmission is constant. Now please pull the earphones out. Close the case and remove it. Remove the case. Okay, we can see. This is what you get from one earphone when it's on your head. This is approximately what you get from two earphones. And they are transmitting all the time. The reason they are transmitting is for the cellular phone to find them. The earphones are transmitted once out of the cage all the time. This will go for until the battery is empty. Okay? So when you use when you put it on your head and not even using it for nothing, or for music, or for call, the radiation level are the same. Constant, all the time. Okay? So let's take away the earphones. Taking it away. This is back to normal. Yeah, they are connected. Okay. Can we get a call in? Or music? Can you put some music in? Let's take away the phone for a second. This is one earbud. Okay? One earbud. One, single. And this is the level you get. Close the audio, the playback. Now David here is closing the playback. You cannot see it because he's doing it far away from not to influence the earbuds. Now there's no audio coming, right? No audio. And the earbud is still radiating. Finished. We have low battery in the meter now. But the earbuds are still radiating all the time. Let's try to get a call. Okay, now David is making a call for the earbuds from the cell phone to the earbuds, actually, to my home phone. You can hear it ringing in the background, and the radiation levels are still the same. There's no difference. Even as much as possible, all the time. In addition to the radiation on their head from the earphones, their smartphone is in their pocket, emitting even more RF radiation while Bluetooth, data, and Wi-Fi are on.
Here we have some Apple AirPods, and they are turned off with the case closed, low levels of RF. And look what happens immediately when we open the case and take out the earbud. Our levels of RF go up pretty high. You can see people walking around with the earpod in their head. It's peaking at about 700 or 800 millivolts per meter.
So does any of that look safe to anybody out there listening, right? But most people will hear this and they'll dismiss it. They'll say, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about, right? Because they don't know what electromagnetic frequencies are. They think a microwave just magically warms food. They think it's like having putting food over a wood-burning stove. They don't think about the dangers because it's getting sold in a store. They can go and they buy it. Their neighbor has one too. So what's the problem? Everybody's getting sicker and sicker and sicker. Nobody can figure out why. It's just the new normal for everybody to have cancer, for nobody to be able to make babies, for everybody to be depressed and have anxiety. Well, this is what it's all from. It's massive amounts of exposure to radiation. And then your government putting out propaganda like that, where they're like, noise canceling headphones. I mean, can they be linked to going deaf? Can they be linked to any kind of brain damage? Well, I've got mine right here on my desk, right? I mean, you see how staged that was earlier? He has them right out on the desk, right? As if he was, caught off guard. I forgot to put them away, right? Of course, they're doing that to make people at home think that it's a conspiracy and that you could trust him because he has the word doctor in front of his name with his bad perm as he's sitting on television with no soul telling people to put these things on. This guy ain't wearing earbuds out in the open, just like all these celebrities and politicians who pretended to go inject themselves with poison, never injected themselves with poison a couple of years ago. They lie, they lie, they lie. And this is why we're in the position we're in, because trust is being put in these people who get propped up on TV as doctors, as scientists, as people who care about you. And little do you know, like the comparison I always make, which seems to resonate with people, if you placed Jeffrey Dahmer in the position of those guys with Ted Bundy sitting on CNBC now talking about earbuds, and they said, it's perfectly safe. I mean, come on, everybody. Would everybody out there wear them if they heard Ted Bundy and Jeffrey Dahmer tell you that they were safe? Would you wear them? No, they wouldn't, because they'd be like, well, these guys are psychopaths. I'm not going to listen to what they say. But you don't know who these people are. You just trust in your television because they've been trained at the Tavistock Institute to talk very subtly to you, to act like they know what they're talking about, to move their hands a certain way, to make you feel comfortable so that they could literally destroy your immune system and kill you off by you putting these things on your skin, on your head, next to your bed at night. Because you trust in these people who literally have one goal in mind. One goal, get the population under 500 million, as we all remember when they sabotaged their own guidestones so that they could get their time capsule from underneath and then pretend like it was people like us who blew them up in the first place, right? No, they knew there was massive amounts of depopulation going on from so many different angles, from chemicals in the food to people poisoning themselves to this type of technology being close to people's bodies and people's, getting cancer at a ridiculous rate, right? And then when people, they go, oh, yeah, what happened to those guidelines? Well, it did say that, we wanted the population under 500 million. Well, a lot of people were getting killed off. We better blow it up. Plus, there's time capsule underneath so we can read for future generations and we can just make a new one anyway. But, we don't want too many people to catch on now, right? That was one of those things that helped wake people up. They said, what is this? How is this sitting somewhere in this country, this list of 10 commandments, which are about the climate, which are about killing off the population? When you got 8 billion people, and then you're saying you need under 500 million. Well, the only way you're going to get there is by doing things like telling people to wear earbuds, telling people to put stuff in their body that they don't even know what they're putting in. And that's because people trust in the television, right? What's the old quote from Richard Nixon? The American people don't believe anything until they see it on television. And just imagine if all the things you saw on television were the exact opposite of what you were told. Think about that and this inverted world we live in. Everything they tell you is bad for you is really good for you. Everything they tell you is good for you and you should go do is bad for you. So you're believing in utter lies because you're under hypnosis. And that's what the television is. And that's really, when they talk about the American experiment, that's what they're really talking about. Hypnosis on a mass scale. Getting people to willingly do these things to themselves, like poison themselves, like put this technology on their body, to constantly wear this tech without actually understanding what it is, because they can't see with their own eyes. And when you tell them about EMFs, they just go, nah, that's all, right? Until they're on their deathbed, and you go, hey, remember when I told you not to wear those things every day? Why do you think you got the brain tumor? No, that's not why. Oh, it's not? Why is it? I don't know why God would do this to me. That's what they usually say. They usually find God then because they need somebody to blame. So that's when these people find God. When something goes wrong, then they want to blame it on God instead of blaming it on themselves for not listening, not researching, and not paying attention to people who are actually trying to help. But instead, what do? They try to silence people like me and you. So that's what's going on in the world, folks. Just more propaganda from your government. Putting stuff out there where it's like, well, noise canceling, it helps people concentrate. You could cancel out the noise, right? We don't need that string that goes between the headphones and the phone or anything like that. And the fact of the matter is we should just be separated from the technology in general. But unfortunately, we're too far gone now for people to go back to the way people used to live. When people were happier, everybody's like, oh man, I need my tech, I need all this stuff. But everybody's miserable and nobody can connect the dots between the two. And then when you tell them it's about the technology, they go, they don't want to hear it. Because they don't want to think about living without it. They can't live a night without the internet, let alone the rest of their lives, because they can't think without a Google search. They can't figure things out without AI. So they look at it and they go, well, I'd rather have anxiety, rather be depressed, I'd rather be miserable every single day and angry as long as I have my phone, right? Instead of going back and living a productive life and being happy every day and not getting hit with frequencies like this because the people united together and saw those towers and said, hey, you know what? They're coming down. And they ain't going down tomorrow, not next week. You're not getting a warning on it. They're going down now because there's more of us than you. And we've all figured it out. But while people like us figure it out, the rest of the people refuse to listen. I thank everybody for being here. I hope you're all doing well. God bless all of you as always and your families.